On today's World Insight with Tian, I spoke with Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam. How can the city set the bar for free trade? And the 2018 APEC host country of Papua New Guinea is renowned for its ethnic diversity. We find out China's role in this multicultural nation.
We say we have 800 languages, 1,000 tribes.
Hello and welcome to World Insight with me, Tian. The program is coming to you from Beijing on CGTN. The APEC Leaders Meeting this year has concluded in Papua New Guinea. China's Hong Kong SAR, as an important member economy of APEC and a founding member of the WTO, epitomizes the benefits of inclusive growth. The Asian tiger economy consistently ranks high on the ease of doing businesses and IPOs. I sat down with Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam at the sidelines of APEC meetings, and she explains how she plans to steer her city towards free trade within the Greater Bay Area and throughout APEC.
China wants to make a deal.
A possible shift in U.S. trade policy towards Hong Kong.
That they're willing to do.
A recent report by the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission, or USSC, urged a rethink of the city's special trading status distinct from China.
We expect that
Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam earlier criticized the USSC report and warned that any change to the U.S.-Hong Kong trading relationship would harm both sides. Hong Kong is treated as a separate trading entity under the U.S.-Hong Kong Policy Act, which was passed in 1992 in preparation for Hong Kong's return. In response to the controversial report, the U.S. State Department reaffirmed that it will pursue cooperation with Hong Kong on trade and economic policies. Does this report indicate a threat to Hong Kong's special status with the U.S., or is it a ploy to use Hong Kong as a bargaining chip in the trade war?
When you refer to the U.S. statement, that's actually, for the time being, it's not the U.S. government, it's the U.S. Congress. And they have sort of taken a certain view, which I do not agree, about whether they should continue to treat Hong Kong as a separate customs entity and with different policies. I think that is only legitimate because we have our own system. And this own system has been working very well, both in terms of the rule of law, the independence of judiciary, the protection of IP rights and freedoms and rights. So there is very little justification for changing that relationship with Hong Kong.
So how is Hong Kong going to find its right way of interacting with these two biggest economies in the world?
The right way, Tianwei, is found in the basic law. The clear direction is enshrined in one country, two systems. So whatever we do, the important principle is to safeguard one country, two systems. And this is not only my view, it is also the view of the leaders in the central authorities, because they want Hong Kong to sort of stick to one country, two systems. And that means that while we respect and preserve the one country, at the same time, I need to safeguard the Hong Kong system.
With the changing of the picture in the region and the debate that you have witnessed, this year's APEC, for example, could further complicate the situation, some argue, in Hong Kong.
Well, from my perspective, or from Hong Kong's perspective, there could be only one way, and that is free trade, an open market, because these two important features actually underline Hong Kong's success over many years, because Hong Kong is a very small city. We do not have much natural resources, okay? We have very good people. So the human wear together with our openness have given Hong Kong's continued success over the years. So Hong Kong is a very strong supporter of free trade, an open market, and the multilateral rule-based system. The very fact that Hong Kong, China, is herself a member of APEC is very telling, because that reflects we are a separate member, separate from the People's Republic of China as a member of the World Trade Organization. In fact, we were a founding member of the World Trade Organization in 1995 before our country joined the World Trade Organization. So wherever we go and whichever international conferences I attend, our advocacy is on free trade and removal of as many barriers as possible. And that philosophy has been guiding our trade policy since I took office last July. So within a period of about 15-16 months, we have been very active in engaging other economies in negotiating on free trade agreement, investment promotion and protection agreement. And I'm very pleased to say that it is during these days in the PNG APEC meeting that Hong Kong and Australia have jointly announced that we have successfully concluded the negotiations on a free trade agreement and have issued a declaration of intent. So I look forward to concluding more free trade agreements for the benefit of Hong Kong as well as other economies.
Congratulations on that, Madam Chief Executive. However, you do see among the APEC 21 economies, there are certain numbers of them that do not necessarily subscribe to the concept you just mentioned,
yes.
Free trade regionalization, even having difficulties now having a statement eventually. Madam Chief Executive, what do you think is the nature of this? Is this a very different view about how trade should be done? Or there is much bigger picture of geopolitics at stake to some of the members? But then, on the other hand, if trade is not done, it's not good for anybody.
Exactly. I think the Asia-Pacific region will continue to be the engine of growth, as we have seen over the past years, because there is that desire to really bridge the gap and improve the livelihood of the people. Ultimately, every government should bear in mind, as President Xi Jinping said, is we are people-oriented. Whatever we do, we want to improve the livelihood of the people. So with that very clear mission in mind, and as you have mentioned, the benefits of free trade are so obvious to anybody. So all economies should really work hard. But I have to say that with economic globalization, with the benefits of economic growth not being felt by everyone in society, we have seen, and I have seen some of those in Hong Kong, there is an emergence of grievances. Or why do I not having an opportunity of upward mobility? Why is my job being displaced? Why it's so difficult to buy a flat, for example? So I said in these APEC meetings that there is a very strong role of government to provide the needed social policies in order to bridge that gap.
What about the multilateral trade platform? WTO, for example, how is it going to be framed with your administration in Hong Kong, given the debate? The regional one, FTA-AP, I know everybody wants to have one, but their definition of FTA-AP is very different from one another. So what do you make of these real international and regional trade mechanisms? What will be Hong Kong's way of approaching it?
Hong Kong being a founding member of the World Trade Organization, we fully support the multilateralism, the rule-based multilateralism, that is free trade, open trade, and transparency. But of course, any institution is not perfect. So there have been talks that or WTO have some deficiency. That's fine. But let's then look at where are those deficiencies and try to address those in a collective manner, because WTO is a very huge organization. But don't sort of deviate or throw away the fundamental principles, which has brought so much value to people around the world. Beyond the WTO, we are also very keen to take part in regional system. So that's why the FTA with the 10 member nations of ASEAN is one of those examples. And beyond the FTA with ASEAN, we now want to join also RCEP. But as primarily Kachang said in Singapore, RCEP amongst themselves, they wanted to complete their negotiation next year, so we'll wait and see. And of course, closer to home ourselves, we have this wonderful opportunity of the Greater Bay Area. That is one of the major regional developments in the mainland of China.
But when is that going to deliver the real results?
Well, results are being delivered almost every day, but we don't go down the big bang approach. As you can see, we are now having easier access in terms of people flow. We have enhanced connectivity with the opening of the high-speed train and the Hong Kong-Macau-Zhuhai Bridge, and we are sort of devising policies to facilitate the development of some services which Hong Kong is very good at, for example, medical and higher education in the mainland cities of Guangdong. And on financial side, we're also trying to get more facilitation and greater connectivity for Hong Kong's financial services to operate in the mainland cities in the Greater Bay Area.
Belt and Road Initiative, of course, is a very important platform with which partnerships are being encouraged. But, Madam Chief Executive, there have also been complaints, quote unquote, about so-called debt issue related to the Belt and Road, about the quality, environment issue related to the Belt and Road. As an ardent supporter of this idea and as a partnership on this platform, what do you make of these complaints, and how will Hong Kong be able to maneuver itself among the very complicated situation related to the development issue?
I feel it is exactly because of those concerns that Hong Kong has a pivotal role to play.
I see.
So, for example, we have offered ourselves in terms of professional services like risk management. So if you refer to projects which are risky, which may incur heavy debt, that means that at the very beginning of conceiving that project, you need very professional support in terms of risk assessment. And even if the project has gone underway, you need very clear and very useful project management and risk management. And then if things go wrong, very effective and credible dispute resolution. All these services are what Hong Kong is good at. That's why we have been promoting Hong Kong to the state-owned enterprises that take us along if you have a Belt and Road project, so that we could support you and provide all the needed inputs.
Carrie Lam was sworn in as the first female chief executive of Hong Kong in July 2017. Under Lam's leadership, Hong Kong has witnessed the completion of infrastructure projects like the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge and the Beijing-Hong Kong high-speed rail. On domestic issues, Lam has strived to make housing more affordable to the densely packed population. What else does Hong Kong's fifth chief executive have in store for her city?
The fear in politics these days, that seems to be a way that some try to instill into people's mind and therefore suggest the role of importance for themselves. Madam Chief Executive, as a seasoned public servant and someone who has been serving Hong Kong for quite some time, what do you make of that tactic, shall we say?
Well, I like your term, Tian, to describe me as a public servant. My whole mission in life is really to serve. So 16 months as a chief executive has given me that experience that as long as I'm very genuine, I'm very sincere, I don't have my own personal agenda, I'm there to serve. You can dislike my policies because there's so many vested interests in society, but you cannot too easily discredit a chief executive who wants to do good things for Hong Kong. So whether you call it a process of trying to depoliticize the complication or whether addressing the fear, I don't know, but I do feel that people look for good governance. as long as there is good governance and doing good things in a fair and just manner, then it would not be too easy for people to become too politically motivated in a not a very rational way.
We also see, not only in international politics, but also politics everywhere, about how messages are being framed and how people use framing of messages in order to change the real nature of issues.
Sure.
So what do you think about these, once again, ways of doing things? And yet, it is very important for the public to understand the real nature of the issue, though it is difficult.
Yeah. We work very hard at certain policy initiatives, and we truly believe that those policy initiatives are very good for Hong Kong. We do not mind a rational debate. But unfortunately,
it's healthy to have a rational debate.
Those policy initiatives somehow have been either twisted, misrepresented, or just bad-mouthed on day one. So I shared with my colleagues that from now on, apart from formulating policies, we better think about how to disseminate and how to market and promote that policy, rather than take for granted that this is something good, people will love it. Because nowadays, when people receive a message, there are so many means, and it is so speedy. If you don't disseminate well from day one, you're put on the defense.
Right.
Because there have been a lot of attacks and criticisms. So this is something where I have learned. So I hope in future, when we have a good policy, a good message, we will be able to market it well.
It's good to have good competition. And yet we do see the mentality of zero-sum game, particularly recently. So from your perspective, is there a way of changing it? And is there a way of doing better ourselves in order to eventually prove what is right and what is wrong? But are we tough enough during this process of being tested?
Competition is fine. Competition keeps us on the toes and gives us the drive to do better. But if competition at the end of the day hurts everybody, that's not good. That's why, again, if you allow me, I draw it back to the Greater Bay Area. People have been saying Shenzhen and Hong Kong are competing. But if Shenzhen and Hong Kong can work together in a regional development called the Greater Bay Area, then we can do great things, not only for Hong Kong and Shenzhen, not only for the entire Guangdong province, but for the nation. So let's work on that basis and trying to address our differences in a rational manner and try to be as humble, as inclusive as possible when differences do occur.
The real last question for you, Madam Chief Executive, is how could you always be so energetic? I see you everywhere. All the international important events where you can promote Hong Kong. I also see you in Beijing pretty often in order to get the policy with the central government. You're in Hong Kong, of course, very passionate pushing the agenda, no matter how you are being framed. How to get that guts and that strength always going, continuous process?
Well, one is I have been enjoying this work as a chief executive. Secondly is I've said in public that, because a lot of people ask me the same question, where's your drive and so on. I said that the ability to improve the livelihood of the people is my source of energy and drive. So to have this honor and privilege to be the chief executive of Hong Kong, I certainly will do my utmost to improve the livelihood of the people of Hong Kong.
Thank you so much.
Not at all.
It's such a pleasure to see you once again. Thank you. All the best.
All the best, Tian.
Stay with us on World Insight. Still to come on our program today. The 2018 APEC host country of Papua New Guinea is renowned for its ethnic diversity. We find out China's role in this multicultural nation.
We say we have 800 languages, 1,000 tribes.
Welcome back. You're watching World Insight with me, Tian. The program is coming to you Monday to Friday on CGTN. This year's APEC meeting shines light on its host country, Papua New Guinea, which is hoping that the meetings will give the island country more than just some publicity. As a Commonwealth nation, PNG government is believed to be formed by a parliamentary democracy, and the country's political life is characterized by diversity and fluid coalitions. Earlier in the capital city, Port Moresby, I spoke to the newly elected chairman of the local Motu Koita Assembly, Dadi Toka. The indigenous people are the traditional inhabitants of the area, but after the country's independence in 1975, they faced competitions, friendly ones, from other ethnic groups who have converged on the city. Mr. Toka and I talked about the challenges he faces, as well as the opportunities emerging in the area, including a newly opened Chinese-built school. Hanoi boy Namona. That's the phrase I learned from the gentleman sitting on my left side, the Honorable Dadi Toka, who is actually the chairman of Motu Koita Assembly, and also he's the deputy governor of the Port Moresby city. What a pleasure to see you. You put out a wonderful tribal gala for all of us visiting Port Moresby recently to welcome the guests of APEC. Beautiful dances and songs.
I guess we're very lucky or fortunate in that way. We have so many cultural groups. We say we have 800 languages, 1,000 tribes. Yes. So when someone talks about diversity, I think you couldn't go anything further than Papua New Guinea. So we're very, very blessed with that.
The Chinese President Xi Jinping, during his speech at the APEC CEO Forum, was talking about diversity.
Yes.
And he's talking about people, let's get rid of arrogance and prejudice.
That's correct.
Let's try to know the other.
Yes.
And how they think and how we should learn from one another.
That's correct, yes. I was impressed with the Chinese president. I was fortunate to meet him yesterday as well at an opening of one of the schools that's in my electorate as well. But he's a very humble man. You know, for him to go all the way into a setting that's amongst a village and settlements, to open a school, for me, I find that that this person is quite down to earth, and he wants to help, and that's what's important. If you genuinely want to help, you're going to have your presence felt in that particular community, and we're very fortunate for that.
The school, what kind of school is that?
Okay.
How are the kids going to benefit?
So yesterday was the opening of an academy. It's the first of its kind in Port Moresby. The school will have early learning students, so five-year-olds all the way to grade 12. So you get to stay in that school from early learning, prep, grade 1, grade 2, all the way to finishing high school.
Can I send your kids there?
Well, if there is space, yes. And I think the standard is going to be quite high. I particularly like the fact that you can we'll be able to have a language curriculum where I think they're going to learn Mandarin.
Wow.
And yesterday there was a group of 7, 8-year-olds who were singing a song in Mandarin, and somehow the only word I came out from that show was "why me?"
So that means I love you.
Yes, so
translated into the English.
Yes, so I'm very impressed with them, and I've just come out of an election, so a lot of those kids recognized me, so they were calling my name, so I went and said hello to them, and because they were dressed in traditional gown from your country, and so you're going to do a performance, and they said, we're going to sing a song in Mandarin. And I said, do you know how to speak Mandarin? Said, oh yeah, we know a little bit. And I'm blown away, because here we are with minimum facilities. Our standard, our quality of education is questioned, but this particular academy is about to produce something amazing. I wasn't privileged enough to learn like Mandarin. Like it's like the language that everyone, if my son is sitting there and goes, Dad, which language shall I learn? that's the first language I'm going to choose. You know, I believe that's the future, and that's where it's going. But I was just blown away. These children that live in the village, in a settlement, are now going to have access to you know, such a facility, and hopefully, we're going to groom, you know, the next doctors, the next lawyers, the next pilots from this particular institution. So, you know, I'm very, very happy with this. So,
certainly, it's a very sweet
yes.
experience, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And, you know, when we're talking about alleviating poverty, well, we've got to start with education. The more children we educate, yes, you know, the chances of them getting good jobs later on down the...
Particularly during the earlier days.
That's correct, because that's where the foundation is.
That's right.
So, yes, I'm looking forward to the next 20-plus years and having those stories come out.
It's a beautiful story.
Papua New Guinea is one of the most culturally diverse countries in the world. There are over 800 known languages in the country, of which many belong to uncontacted tribes. Most of the population of more than 8 million live in customary communities, which are as diverse as the languages. While under a constitutional monarchy, the country pursues a parliamentary democracy. How has Papua New Guinea defied expectations and united an ethnically fragmented society into a modern democracy?
You obviously is coming from one of the tribes.
Yes.
One of the many tribes here in this
yes,
country.
Correct.
And yet, the government is also working with the tribe, and
yes.
yet you and so many of those of your tribe are the landowner of this area.
Yes.
So this seems to be quite a complicated system.
And like a lot of countries, some countries that you go to, there's the indigenous landowners are acknowledged. You go to Australia, it's the Australian Aborigines. You go to New Zealand, it's the New Zealand Maori. So, and the list goes on. So there's many examples. In Port Moresby alone, the original inhabitants, or you know, in this case we could say landowners, are the Motu and Koitabu people. Okay, so that we're the indigenous group that's been here for hundreds and hundreds of years. So in 1884, when you know, from Australia, a ship was sent up to, you know, under the instructions of Queen Victoria, to set up a protectorate, you know, under Her Majesty. They came up and, you know, got all our chiefs together, put them in a ship and said, hey guys, we're here to protect you. And then it went on from there. I don't know what arrangements were made, but they decided that the city, the capital city, was going to be here. And hence, the city has developed, progressed, but the original inhabitants, or the indigenous landowners, we are still part of the city, but wonderful. The city is growing around us. And this is where I guess it gets complicated. If the leadership or the relevant policies are not in the favor of the indigenous landowners, we will not be benefiting. Okay, hence an event like APEC. You know, I keep on getting asked, how is APEC going to benefit Papua New Guinea? I said, well, as for Papua New Guinea, I can't give you the answer, but for my own people, I can give you the answer right now. I have access to a team from Brunei. Brunei have a similar situation with their own indigenous people who live on water, and that's how my people live. So I'm obviously going to reach out to them and talk about solutions, or you know, how do we live over the water, and maybe you know, getting some assistance of some sort from that particular country and the relevant team that's here. I'm going to reach out to the New Zealand group. You know, how do you deal with your indigenous landowners, with your Maoris?
Right.
And that's the benefit for me. Okay, now on top of that, business opportunities are now going to open up. Okay, once again, I can't speak on behalf of the country, but for my own people, we are part and parcel of the city.
Right.
We're not going to be moved to another area because we live here, we're from here. So, you know, I was speaking with Anne Sherry, you know, from Carnival, Australia, so P&O, the ship we're, you know, sitting on. And she's interested in pursuing, you know, possible business ventures in, you know, in tourism services. And that's beneficial for me, because then I can go, well, I want priority or a quota of the employment for my people. And so APEC, in a nutshell, is going to benefit the Motu Koita people.
I understand in the assembly, for example, in which you serve, there are quite some debates,
Yes.
to say the least. For example, where does the money come from? Where
Correct.
does it, and who will give the money? And how is it going to be shared when it comes to different necessities of the people?
That's right.
How pollution will be dealt with, for example, on the water. You mentioned there are
Correct,
people
yes.
living on the water. Pollution is a big challenge. And also education, health care. All of these strain issues are well-beings of the people
That's
in your
right.
tribe. So how that is being worked out in the assembly, and how is that interacting with the rest of the country and even beyond?
Yeah, so if we look at it from the assembly level, we recently came out from an election. So in the election, there's 16 members, and those 16 members represent a particular electorate. It can be from a village, or with the bigger villages, you get 2 or 3 members. And then the 17th seat in the assembly is the chairman. And that's the seat that I successfully won. So there's 17 of us, and the chairman it becomes the executive arm and the legislative arm, etc. So when we sit in the assembly, we are now discussing policy platforms. My electorate is all of the villages in this area. There's 8 villages, but they have their own electorate members. Right now, the only source of funding that the Motu Koita Assembly receives is from GST. So every business, you go to the shop in Port Moresby and you buy, for example, a biscuit. The GST of that comes to the National Capital District's, I guess, account for for GST in general, and in a year it collects about 200 million. About 6 million of that goes to Motu Koita people to look after certain functions of the villages. And this time around, we're now discussing ways to look at waste management. The walkways over the water. How do we make them durable, so you're not replacing the timber every now and then. So there's numerous priorities, but yeah, I think what's important is to make sure that the particular member from that area is the one that says, these are my priorities, because I want to work with that member.
That's right.
It's very important, and teamwork is all about, I guess, all about the future now.
Yes. You have a lot of different tribes and ethnic groups, 800 of them.
Yes.
Just imagine that. So many different languages, more than 800.
Correct.
So how would that work within a national system? That's also a question many outside this country are interested in. Briefly, can you help us to understand?
Well, this is where it gets very, it's challenging. When you have so many tribes, there are some villages in other parts of the country where you and I are sitting here, you and I will speak one language, and just 10 meters that way, they speak another language.
That's right.
And that, it makes it difficult, I guess, in order to try and, I guess, deliver services in a way. Like, I'll give you another example. So in Port Moresby, we are the indigenous landowners, but because it's Port Moresby and it's the capital city, other indigenous groups have now settled here. Okay, so now we've got to find a way for all ethnic groups to be able to work together.
Wow, that's complicated.
Okay, and that's what makes it harder for the governor, Paus Parkov, and myself, and to ensure that this particular group of people that come from that part of the country that are now settled here, you need to make sure that they understand how these people live and that group of people live. So it's complicated, but listen, we make it work.
I don't want to sit in your chair because it's too complicated. However, what is the key to solve all the problems, if there are many problems? Consultation.
I believe in mediation and consultation. From where I'm sitting, yes, our people haven't had so much access to a lot of information, but if we sit with them and talk to them and explain things, that there are better chances of coming to some sort of resolution.
Yes.
That's a win-win for both parties, and that's very important.
Beautiful. The culture itself of course, we are in a modern society. Your society is changing so fast. With APEC coming over, of course, it's even faster.
Yes.
That you see the change, the partners that you can seek all over the world. But the question is, how would you preserve the culture, make sure it's not just part of tourism,
but
rather the real part of life?
Well, that's a fantastic question, and this is why the Motu people have their own assembly.
Tell me about that.
Okay, we have our own assembly because we are under threat of the fact that we're in the city, and as I mentioned before, different ethnic groups are amongst us. So we are a threat to losing our own identity, because if there's intermarriages, we will stop talking our language. You know how you introduce.
And you cannot stop intermarriages either.
Exactly, but we've got to find a way of preserving that. We own a radio station that speaks in the language, so it's fantastic. But I'm looking at other ways, maybe in the curriculum itself. We spoke about languages. You know, Mandarin is going to be introduced at Butuka. Maybe we need to put in Motu and Koitabu. You know, those two languages. So and that's how we maintain it. During the year, have events that celebrate our history, you know, our culture. Numerous ways to do it, and the beauty of it is, and this is what APEC provides, it gives me the network to, how do you do it in your country here? Brunei, how do you do it in your country, New Zealand, and, you know, in China?
But at the same time, becoming more confident also about your own culture. See the people who are surrounding the tribal gala, as I said,
yes.
And the fascination people had about your culture.
It was amazing. I was blown away, and I was very impressed with the organizing of it. It's the first time I've seen it laid out like that. Usually you have one cultural group perform, they move on, next one comes. Last night you got to, it was like a smorgasbord. It's like a buffet.
One of them,
you know, you walk out and go, oh, which one do I go to? And it wasn't a matter of let's sit and wait till they perform.
I'm struggling with priorities. Let me just put it that way.
Exactly, yes.
Having said that, though, there's another very important issue here. That is, you know, on the one hand, you preserve the culture, you make sure the society progresses to the modern society.
Correct.
But on the other hand, you do see apparently some complicated geopolitics going on.
Correct, yes.
For example, you've seen the speeches given by the leaders of different economies of the APEC community, and sometimes they are not really seeing eye to eye with one another on some issue. So to you, coming from PNG, particularly from the tribal culture,
yes,
how do you see what's going on around you?
Well, put it this way, you know, the speakers today, you know, they're leaders of their respective countries. They're going to talk about topics in general, and it's for the, I guess, you know, the bigger landscape. But for the average Papua New Guinean, we just want to see services being there. We want to make sure that this particular hospital has the relevant medical services with the medication in it. This particular school has classrooms, it has teachers. That's our main concern. I'm not concerned about setting up a naval base between the US and Australia and things. I'm concerned about what's happening on ground zero. Okay, and you know, China, the Chinese government helping Butuka set up that school. I mean, that's fantastic. Now, my next approach is to talk to the relevant authorities. Now, okay, how do we set up another school? With the help of the Chinese government again. That's how I want to operate, because I want to make sure that these facilities. Listen, we're going to get all sorts of comments about quality and things like that. At the end of the day, it's whoever is going to come out and stand with us and work with us. You've got to make sure that they're genuine. I'm not into the politics of making grand statements, and then 10 years later nothing's happened.
Did you experience some of those?
For Papua New Guinea, we're working on. We're so far behind. There's a lot to catch up on. Whether it be in the education sphere, the theme at the moment is on technology. We have some of the most expensive internet rates in the world, if not the most expensive. Once we open up these doors, it's just going to leapfrog. It's going to change the dynamics of how we do business, how children are educated, our health systems. Everything will change, and that's what I'm most concerned about. If the country, if any APEC economy can go, hey, we're going to help you do this, and this is the timeline. We're going to help next year. This is going to happen. Like I said, wonderful speeches, but at the end of the day, I want to see delivery. You know, I want to deliver as well, because I'm going to sit amongst the relevant people, and how are we going to work together so what I promised to my people, to my constituents, is delivered.
Right.
And, you know, and as I said, it's just ground zero. What can we do on ground zero? Because that's all that matters. Yes,
thank you so much. Dati Toga, Chairman of Motu Koita Assembly. What a pleasure seeing you. All the best to you, your family, and your tribe. Thank you. That's my conversation with the head of the ethnic inhabitants of Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea. And that is all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more, try to find us World Insight CGTN into your search engine or check out our YouTube channel. Also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Sina Weibo. From me, Tian Wei, and everyone on the World Insight team, thanks for watching. Tune in again next time for insights across China and